Hello and welcome to another episode of the Midierror Meets podcast, where we speak to a wide range of people from the music world. On the show this time we have Duvdev from Infected Mushroom, who are one of the biggest electronic acts in the world. They've been making dance floors go mental across the planet for the last 25 years, and they continue to do so with their genre-defining Psy Trance sound mixed with all kinds of other influences. There is a GoFundMe page for the podcast if you want to donate. There's also a Ko-fi page if you want to just throw me a few quid. That would be fantastic. Okay, let's get on with the show. And the first question I asked Duvdev was about his musical beginnings.
Well, I grew up in a musical family. My father used to play the piano and the accordion, so I used to hear music all the time. My brother also learned piano and was kind of a early day rock of actually UK rock and new wave. You know, used to listen to Pink Floyd, Genesis, all that stuff, Peter Gabriel and stuff. So I grew up on that stuff, then later on kind of formed my own taste in music that came from there to heavy metal, punk, and then eventually to electronic music.
That's cool. So did you have older brothers?
So I have two older brothers. I'm the youngest. So and both of them are older by far. Like my middle brother is 9 years older than me, and my bigger brother is 15 years older than me. So when I was born into and went into their music kind of vibe, you know. So yeah, that's why.
Nice. I think that's always great, isn't it? When someone's got a sibling that's like a few years older, you get like a really advanced education in music. You skip all the stuff that maybe you would have got into, and
advanced education and not what your parents are hearing, which is usually a big difference than what you are for your upbringing. So for me, I had my two brothers that were listening to a lot of good stuff, and I grew into that.
Excellent. Wow. And so what sort of bands were you into in your early days?
Well, I used to listen, when I was younger. The start was, again, Pink Floyd, Genesis. I used to listen to P1000. Then I moved to Depeche Mode, Gary Newman, started the whole new wave for me kind of vibe. And then I started to go into new wave and punk with a lot of bands that, Dead Kennedys, Cross, all these kind of bands. And then kind of started actually even DJing new wave and punk with vinyls and started collecting that. And then I remember, I think it was, I don't know when Ride the Lightning by Metallica came out. It was, I think, 80-something, 81 maybe or later. I was just blown away from that album and shifted completely to heavy metal. Because of that album. Yes, that specific album turned me completely. And then I was a metalhead for a few years with a band, and I had a first band called Inzim when I was 16, and we were like kind of rock metal, and did that for like 2 years until I enrolled their army.
Wow. And what was it about that Metallica album that grabbed you so much to
I think it was the guitar riffs that I've never heard before, something like that. It was a sound, because I used to listen to rock, to new wave and stuff like the early days, but to hear guitar riffs and so aggressive and so well produced to 81, then it became even worse with Master of Puppets and all of those. And then I followed a lot of heavy metal like Pantera and stuff like that. I was blown away with this aggressiveness in the music. And that captured me completely. And I was 16, aggressive, Israeli. And that suited for me a lot until I heard first time Psytrance, which was like 2 years or 3 years later when I was 17 or 18. And then I was blown away from that because the same reason, the same aggressiveness came into electronic music. And me as a keyboard player, I fell in love with that and shifted back to kind of more electronic vibe.
Yeah, right. Do you think because I guess maybe the tempo was this sort of tempo?
It's not only it's tempo for sure, aggressiveness, and a building of Psytrance is similar to heavy metal, that it's not really lyric song. It's like a abstract kind of, in the early days at least, kind of abstract building. So very similarities between heavy metal and Psytrance. And later on, as Infected Mushroom, even in the first album, None of This Is Real stuff, are really already with distortions and stuff like that. So we brought it straight away, even in the gathering, these influences in. And of course, later on, a lot of thrash metal came into our music with the guitarist and all of that.
Yeah. You also mentioned Gary Newman in that list of influences in the beginning. He's obviously a hugely influential artist to a lot of people. But yeah, his latest album, Savage, is incredible. It's like an epic film score. But you also mentioned distortion. It's heavily distorted from the first sound in that Gary Newman album. It's just nasty. And
he was, these are, the whole 70s electronic vibe was Moogs and all these kind of massive analogs that is super easy to distort and still keep on a level of a sound. So Gary Newman and all that new wave kind of vibe back in the UK again was amazing, and it blew me away. And then it became, from that I took it more to the poppy side of Depeche Mode, which was still electronic to my best, but the songwriting was so good, and I fell in love with Depeche Mode in the beginning, straight up, and then was a huge fan of their stuff for the early years.
Excellent, man. Yeah, amazing artists. And so if you went from like DJing new wave and playing sort of punk or metal bands, can you remember when you first heard Psytrance? Where was that?
Well, definitely. That was in a party. I was like 16 and a half, and a friend of mine told me, hey, we gotta go to this club in where we used to live in the north. They're playing this music, you gotta check it out. So we went there, and we didn't understand what this music is, because we come from heavy metal, and then we come to a club and it's like a disco kind of, acid trance back in the day. This was the year of, I say, when I was 16. So it was 89, 90. Trance was kind of acid house, acid trance. It was not really, it came from Europe. So, and we heard this music for the first time, and we said, we don't get it, And then next week we went there again, and eventually that kind of took us away, but it took time. It was a lot of TB303s, I remember, acid and stuff, so I fell into it very quickly, but it took a lot of exploring in the beginning. But when I was hooked, that was over for me.
Yeah, I definitely like the late 80s, like acid house was huge, and like you say, the TB303 was just so iconic. It was in like so many. It was almost in every track. And for me, it was like, again, aggressive. I liked the sound, and I was straight up, and I wanted more and more and more. Definitely. And even I guess you had tracks that were like, that crossed over into being a bit pop, like Higher State of Consciousness by Josh Wink. But again, also, yeah, you had the distortion, which people would run pedal through 303s through pedals and get like really gnarly, really dirty acid lines.
This was what I came into it, and then when I started listening to a broad bunch of trance, then I discovered so many other bands from Europe at that time, and then I dove straight into to do the music.
Excellent. So, so you make. As Infected Mushroom, you make music with Erez, and you've been together many years.
25 years this year.
Wow, congratulations, man. That's incredible. What a partnership.
Yeah.
What was it in those early days that sort of connected you two together as like a group?
Well, definitely our upbringing, both of us come from classical training, pianos and keyboards, and when we started doing trance together, we really liked the melodic side of it. That's one thing. The second thing is we came from a part of Israel in the north, and we didn't know anything about sound. We didn't know anything about keyboards. We just knew to play one keyboard, and Erez was really savvy back in the day with a computer. So we basically started doing music only with the computer, which back then was completely taboo and nobody wanted a part of it, you know? Because we did it because we had no money, we had no keyboard. So we started doing music on a program called Impulse Tracker, which was a bit 64. You used to write numbers to do the track.
Tracker, yeah, I'm familiar with trackers. Yeah.
Yeah. So
was that on Commodore or?
Well, we did the Commodore version, but it went then to a PC, you know. But yeah, it was on Commodore. Right. So we started doing music like that. So even inside the Israeli scene, we were something completely weird. Nobody wanted a part of us, and we brought our classical music, and it was very melodic and stuff. But at the same time, it blew up our style in Israel like fire, because we had such a different sound, because it was like computer sound, and we were so different than anything else. So the moment it started hitting the dance floor from kids and from small DJs, it spreaded like fire. And we didn't know what's going on, you know? And that was our early days. It was very unique how we used to walk and combine together. And then from that point, we wanted to just learn and learn and learn. So we brought our first keyboard, then more keyboards, then more Cubase 1 came. Then, you know, and we brought our first console. So we were learning sound through making music, and not first learning sound being there and then music. So we were just learning and learning, doing. And of course, we had all the time in the world. So we were like 24/7 into Infected Mushroom. And this was the early days, and it was I call it fun and games, because we really didn't know what we were doing, and we didn't care about it, you know, because we just did it.
Yeah, I mean, creatively, that's an amazing place to be, isn't it? When you sort of don't know what you're doing.
And it's not only don't know, you don't care.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think that sort of fearless, like, adventure into the horizon is like, yeah, you don't know where you could go, and yeah, magic can happen. What would you say were like those early tracks? How would you describe those early tracks of yours that were like?
Well, we call it super. In Israel, they call it nitzchonot. That means glorious. It was a very happy psychedelic trance, like super happy. It's fast. It was very fast. 150 BPM. Wow. Very 145 to 150, very fast, with weird sounds, and happy, and people fell in love with it in Israel, and it became we kind of, I'm telling you, each time we put out a track for a few friends, the week after, all of Israel kids, they knew it, and we were blown away. It was not internet times, you know. It was like so we were blown away. And we didn't like that music so much, because it's not really what we wanted to do, because we didn't know what we're doing. It just came out like this. I think The Gathering is the first album that took us like 2 years to kind of find our sound, you know? Because in the beginning, we were just shooting. It's like, people fell in love with it, but we were not really... This is not what we wanted to represent. So that's why it was not even Infected Mushroom. It was Duvdev and Erez. Duvdev and Shidapu, we were called. We didn't have a name yet, you know? People loved it, but we didn't. So I think The Gathering is the first album that really... It is the first album, but it also represents the first sound of Infected Mushroom.
It must have been quite difficult, I imagine, to sort of control your ego at that stage, if everyone just loves like everything you put out across the country.
It was vice versa. It was very easy to control the ego because we had no ego then, because we were still, Erez was living with his parents, and I was working in 2 jobs just to kind of have money to be in a studio. So we didn't know. And first of all, we were blown away that somebody signed that album, because The Gathering, every record company in Israel threw us away. Nobody wanted it because nobody understood that album like that. It was never been submitted before to any label. There was Astral Projection in Phonocle, but that was very more melodic than what we did. So nobody kind of grasped the opportunity. And when somebody signed that album, B&E Records, and wanted another 2, we were blown away. We said, wow, somebody wants that. So ego was not even there, you know? You can talk about maintaining ego when Classica Mushroom came and we became a huge band everywhere. Then we were like, what? But again, we were so young, we didn't know what we were doing, and we just didn't care because Psy Trance scene was so underground, so we had the underground vibe to it. It was no fancy club, there was no hotels, there was no agent, there was no... When you used to go to a party, you used to sleep in the promoter's house. So we come from a place, ego came way later on the career.
I see. I mean, it's an amazing like thing to have done, just to have that sort of journey. And I think it's also it's a really good story for people who are maybe coming up through the music industry or starting out, to like not give up, you know, because even hugely established artists like yourself, who's been in a partnership for 25 years, like at the top of the game, even you've had people saying we don't want your record in the beginning, you know.
I always tell to musicians, they only will tell me, what's your big advice? I just say, just produce so much music. Don't care if people like it or not, because eventually one track, not necessarily the track you think is the best, but one track that you did will hit so many people and you will be blown away. You won't get it, you know? But you have to do the music, you have to believe in what you do, and do as much music as you can, because it will get better. Your early days are maybe rough and unique, but it's not what really you want to put out, you know? I always tell that to people. People go like, hey, maybe do another Gathering album. I go like, well, I can't go back to being 20, crazy Israeli, and no responsibilities in life and produce an album. I can try, but it's not really me today. I'm influenced from other stuff, and many years have passed. So I produce what I like today. And that's why the sound of Infected Mushroom is always evolving, always changing. And luckily enough, we do it for a living for so many years, so we technically can do basically music-wise whatever we want. And that's, again, I lucked out in that part. But in the beginning, just do as much music as you can and put it out there.
Excellent. No, that's really, really good advice. You mentioned earlier on about those early tracks, and I think it continued throughout your career, having like weird sounds and odd, sort of trippy things happening. What sort of things were you putting into tracks to start off with, just to test the reaction?
You know, me and Erez, back in the early days, we were learning so much about analogs and computers and samplers. So we just put the weirdest stuff out there. I remember in The Gathering, you hear loops that we cut it from Akai. They were so out there to that time because everybody was using an 808 and all that stuff. And we came and put samples in an Akai, then transferred it into Impulse record. The sound was not existing then, so it was very advanced. When I hear it today, I go like, wow, how the fuck did we do this loop? And then I remember, so it was really advanced, and then we bought our first Doepfer system, and we wanted the weirdest sound, and then we were always looking for that weird sound. But the main stuff for us was A, the melody, always, and B, how hard it will break the dance floor. This was the theme of Infected Mushroom, not only in the early days, it's until now, but in the early days we were younger, we were aggressive, and we wanted to go to every festival or party and play with other big DJs and just destroy the dance floor. That was our thinking. And this is what driven us to do such dance floor music at that time.
Amazing. Well, I think you've certainly achieved that goal. I mean, people. There is a quote I wrote down about you saying, "Over time, we continue to incorporate our signature sound to different genres with a goal of making people go mental."
Yeah, that we wanted people to forget about their weekends and go so hard on the dance floor. And on those days, we were still surprised in each country we come how so many people A, know us, and B, know every track and go mental. We were like, because again, this was the only internet when we started was it was Kazaa and then previous Napster. It was not such a big thing that you put out a track today in YouTube and everybody knows it.
Right.
So we were blown away.
I loved yeah, I mean, I guess people would call it sound design nowadays, like what you were doing with putting trippy vocal effects in and playing things.
And the funny thing is, it was sound design without knowing sound design. So it's like it was sound. I call it experiment, because I couldn't tell you why a sawtooth moves from here to here back in the day. I would just do it, and then some people say, "Oh, you did this and that." I go like, "I don't know how I did it. I just tweaked a few." I didn't know. This is something that came later on. Sound design we learned while doing it.
Yeah, man. Well, I always say to people who don't make music or who aren't like, proficient in making electronic music or production, that like anyone can make sound. If you've got like a portable recorder, you can get weird sounds and you can chuck them together and you can make beats and anything you want.
And today it's way easier than back in the day, because back in the day there was no recorder. You have to take a microphone, boom out, then put it into the Akai sampler, which was advanced, and then chop it for hours, so today, you can do so much by just doing. You have a laptop that is basically a portable studio to everywhere you want to go. You just hook a few things to it. You can do as much as you can, and then just have good speakers to put it out. Yeah, we come from a different time. But again, I love both times. I love the easiness of today, that you can just produce everywhere you are. And that's why we still produce so much music until today.
Yeah, man. I've owned a few Akai samplers over the years myself, and you're turning that jog wheel all the time to
all the time.
change the sample length and type in all the digits and go through the menus.
Yeah, again, go back to the decay, releases, and all that stuff, chopping heads. It was fun, it was fun doing. But
it was fun, yeah, absolutely. And I think always you ended up getting amazing results with the time that you put with those samplers.
100%.
You play something back that was either time stretched and it sounded fucking incredible,
insane,
or just you pitched something down and you had these weird artifacts coming in alongside it. So it's always worth that time, I think.
Of course.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you've clearly made music for the dance floor, like all over the world at an unbelievably high level. What would you say are like the key elements to making music for the dance floor? Like, what does the dance floor need?
Well, again, lucky enough for me, because we became such a big band, I visited dance floor all around the world for the last 25 years on a constant basis. So A, the trends, B, you see what works on the dance floor or what not, so you can actually test a track, and if it works, great. If not, you can change a little stuff and try it again. So it's a trial and error. Until you don't care about the trial and error, or you do, depends how are you as a creator. But we were lucky enough to visit so many dance floors and also see the similarities and difference between countries to countries. And again, dance floor, as much as people think it has no rules, it has a lot of rules. And that's the beauty and the non-beauty of any kind of electronic music for the dance floor, because it has rules. And to dance a crowd, you have to have the rise, the drop. In each kind of in techno it's different, in trance it's different, but this stuff you learn. But again, in the early days, I wasn't thinking about other scenes. For me, there was nothing besides Psytrance. I used to see, oh, this is a big techno. I didn't care. I didn't know because I was not into any other thing besides Psytrance. So I was only trying to make people in our kind of scene dance. And then only later on I realized, because I brought so many influences from heavy metal, from new wave and stuff, that a lot of people that don't like Psytrance listen to Infected Mushroom. I didn't realize that in the beginning. It took time to kind of even realize that other people listen to that, because this is super Psytrance for me, you know? But then I heard a lot of people, oh, I don't like Psytrance, but I used to be a goth when I was young, and I like this track. So I used to go and say, oh, okay. And then when came BP Empire, our third album, it was a dance floor album, but it was more progressive Psytrance. And then people got like, oh, Infected can do that. And then, of course, when came Converting Vegetarians, which was a chill out album, that opened another door for us. So I think the longevity of years and the ability to realize a dance floor and do what we like again helped us capture a lot of crowds.
Definitely. Yeah, I can imagine it being so valuable going to like Russia and seeing the crowd react, and going to Brazil and seeing the crowd
and
react.
Japan,
and
back to South Africa, Germany, Israel, and we were all over the place, Mexico, and it was different, but we fell in love with the party aspect of it and just continued making music for it.
Yeah, I mean, you've toured prolifically over the years. You must have played thousands of gigs.
Thousands of gigs, and this is the weirdest year I had in my entire life. First year of non-touring at all for 25 years. It's been a blessing for being with the family and doing music, because lucky enough I had so much time in the studio and I was creative. Some artists was not creative in this time, but it's the weirdest years for me ever, because I'm used to living on a plane and on the road. That's what I've been doing for so many years, and when you took that away from us, it's weird, and I believe it's weird for every touring musician. But again, hopefully next year or the end of this year, we'll go back and enjoy that part of dance floor and creating music again.
Yeah, I think it's just that hope of when it returns.
Well, it will return in some point, but for us, and I think for everybody that kind of feel the vibe, it will not return as it was. It will return different. You will have to adapt. And also the music, while you have to understand that people that didn't consume music for dance floor for 2 years, unless they were dancing it at home or doing exercise with it, their whole vibe changed. The whole scene will change. And we don't know what will work. And because it's such a prolific event, to take people out of dance floors for 2 years, who knows how it's going to come back, you know? Some of it will come back as before, but a lot of things will change. And anyways, I'm very well looking forward to go back.
Yeah, you're going to absolutely smash it when you're allowed to.
I'm ready. I have so many tracks. I'm ready. Let's go. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, prior to that, I think I read that you were having like 120 gigs per year, which is just incredible. Like, what are the... I mean, you're an amazing live act. Like you say, like everyone around the world knows Infected Mushroom. Like I've got friends who are into drum and bass and they only like drum and bass, and they still know who Infected Mushroom are. So you've got this amazing ability to just just propagate the music industry. Like I don't know if any other, I can't really think, maybe the Prodigy, I guess, would be up
I think the Prodigy will be up there. Of course, Pendulum is up there as well, even though they're more driven into the drum and bass scene, but they crossed over for so many. Again, it's the uniqueness of sound, and it's the little details we put into the music that you don't have to like our genre to like Infected Mushroom. Again, I've done so many details and so many songs that they say, oh, I like this song, you know, but it's not necessarily Psytrance or Infected Mushroom style. So it's the diversity that we put into the music that I think that captured so many people. and again the longevity, and again being real to what we do, because we never went too extreme in the pop side, we never went too extreme on the commercial side. We dove, but we didn't go all the way. And I think people always appreciate that in ones that we always kind of in the underground scene, and they appreciate the time and effort we put into the music. After you listen to it a few times, you just get it. So a lot went into it, you know?
Definitely, it is quite infectious. That's a stupid thing to say. But it's infected mushroom. It's infectious.
It's okay.
But it is infectious music, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like when you, if like say you're at a festival and you walk past the stage and you can hear Psy Trance. It just like, I think there's something about how clean the production is. Like it's so pure.
It's always just clean, not too much bass and not too much. And it was very midi into your face, clean, not too many there's a lot of layers, but they're all very well produced usually, and it captures a lot of ears.
Definitely, man, definitely. But you have also done a lot of collaborations over the years with the likes of Paul Oakenfold produced one of your albums.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, which album was that?
That was the Legend of the Black Shawarma. He was in the production with Smashing the Opponent that we did with Jonathan Davis from Korn, and another track in that album. And then it came out on his label. Paul and I are good friends here in the LA community. When I came to LA 16 years ago, he was the first here when nobody was here in LA. And there was a few small, very DJs that were playing here for hundreds of people that now they're bombastic. Steve Aoki, Cascade, DJ AM, and Paul. This was the beginning of the LA community. There was nobody there, and then Infected Mushroom came, and we just rampaged the whole country because we were like a band. And the Americans, they just ate us for breakfast. So, and Paul became a very good friend. And the beginning days of LA, after I produced Vicious Delicious, which was the biggest album of Infected Mushroom until today. So this was the first album produced here in LA.
Right. Yeah, I guess Paul Oakenfold is like, he's been a trendsetter all his life, you know, sort of.
Forever.
But those early Happy Monday, like his remix of Hallelujah.
The first time I met him,
incredible.
The first time I met him here in LA, he knew everything about the UK trance scene. He knew Martin, Men with No Name. He knew so many stuff of the English, you know, back in the day. Green Nuns of the Revolution. He knew everyone. Simon Passport, of course, the Hallucinogen Tip Crew. And I was blown away because he comes from a different kind of, you know, scene than me, and we became friends until today. We actually played a drive-through here in LA 1 month ago together, and him, Cosmic Gate, and us. It was fun to see all the guys. Wow. Yeah, it was fun.
Nice, man. Yeah, Cosmic Gates also. I used to have a like DJ a little bit, and I used to have a few Cosmic Gate records. They were pretty sort of like hard trance, like really banging hard trance.
Yeah.
Nice, man. You mentioned Simon Posford there, who is Hallucinogen.
Correct.
And you said in a previous interview that was one of the most challenging collaborations that you had.
I wouldn't call it challenging. When Infected Mushroom started, Hallucinogen Simon was our biggest hero in trance, even way before Spango came, which was also brilliant. But Hallucinogen and the Tip era, Tip Records, we were so influenced, and we were so, you know, for us, he was the main guy producing Psytrance music. So when we met him and did a track with him, we were blown away, and he was liking what we did, which we didn't get, and it was challenging because we came to the UK, we spent time in his house doing a track over there, taking us out of our elements in Israel of doing a track. So it was a bit different. But again, we learned so much from him, and he was so advanced at that time in his way of thinking about psychedelic music. Not only at the time, then came Spongo, which was unheard of at that time, and we were blown away again. So a visionary in the electronic Psy Trance and any electronic producer is definitely Simon Passport. And we're friends today, and we talk a lot. And he's a big influence on Infected Mushroom.
That's amazing, man. That's amazing. Yeah. I listened to a bit of one of his Spongel live concerts today. I've not really been familiar with it, but yeah, it was really amazing. Really, like, lots of instrumentation.
Insane. So many amazing musicians from the UK. His guitarist it's Michelle Adamson that sings on the album, which also sang on Infected Mushroom album a few times. He's a good friend. And the whole team, Raj. I know Raj from the Goa days. I used to, live in Goa for a few years. So,
oh, did you live in Goa?
Yeah, I spent 95, 96, 97, almost in those years, like half of the year in Goa, half of the year in Israel. So,
oh wow,
yeah.
What was it like to live in Goa? What were those years like?
So those were crazy years. This was my time. I was released from the army at 95. Straight away went to India. Spent there the first time 1 year and 2 months. Was blown away from the Goa days. Was blown away from the in India especially, and I kept going back for 96, 97, 98. Then I stopped my backpacking days and all my stuff, and started Infected Mushroom was blowing up. So I go to India now every year to do shows. But it's not the same since I used to live there and be there, and it was so different than what I remembered. But I love India, and Goa was amazing.
Yeah, India's an incredible place. It's full of like really beautiful people, and has a sort of a magical,
correct,
spirit.
Some mystical, spiritual thing about it. Correct, because it's a very old place. Each time you go to a very old place, there's an old memories embedded in that place. Like you go to Jerusalem, you don't know what is it about it, but that's a city that is already here for 6,000 years. So it's a lot of stuff are embedded there, so you feel it the moment you get into it. But then you go out and move to Tel Aviv. It's a better place. But I'm just saying, all these old places, there's something mystical about them. Definitely.
Absolutely. I lived in Siberia for a year.
Oh yeah.
I was teaching English in Siberia, and when I walked around at nighttime, there was exactly what you're saying. There was this like intangible feeling in the air of history, of like it was really incredible. I've never felt anything.
I actually
like that.
Played there a few times.
Really?
Yeah, of course.
What is the most, in terms of like the most far-flung location, what's the most sort of what's the weirdest or furthest out of the cities you've ever played?
I played everywhere, from forests to located beach. Of course, in Brazil, I play Universal Paralelo, which you have to take you cannot get there. You have to take a helicopter just to fly getting in. I played in so many remote locations, and I played everywhere in this planet that is possible for an Israeli. And it's been a journey.
Absolutely, man. Like, yeah, to be one of, because 2 times you've been in the top 10 biggest DJs in the world.
Yeah.
And like, that is an incredible feat on its own, because like we're on this planet and you're like some of the best in the world. That must be like such
very
feeling.
insane, and it was very difficult on those years, but I was very into the charts back then, and yeah, it came as a surprise. Even when we came first time to the DJ magazine, first entry of Infected Mushroom was to the number 24. And then I remember my manager is calling me, "Hey, you're 24 in DJ Mag," and I asking, "What is the 24 DJ Mag? What is this?" I didn't know. And then he explained, and then we go, "Wow, what are we doing there?" And then next year we came 12. So I go like, these are all fans of Infected Mushroom putting us there. We didn't campaign for it. We didn't do anything. We didn't know that, We just, so yeah, it was a big thing, and then we moved to the top 10 higher and higher. Back in the day, it was an achievement of what we were doing fan wise, because it was not really about promoting it. And then later on, over the years, it became more of a promotional thing and stuff, which is still important. And some people dive a lot into it and stuff. And it's important, especially in Asia. For those markets, for if you want to play a lot there, you have to be kind of associated with the DJ Mag thing. And it was cool when it happens. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think that's so good that like on this planet you're in the top like that.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine how cool that must be.
Yeah, it is.
Is there any where feels like home to you when you're playing a gig? Where feels like
home is always in the last 16 years. Home is LA for Infected Mushroom, because family is here, studios are here, and we produce here. But a home show is always Tel Aviv, because Infected Mushroom, of course, Israeli, always dressed the Israeli banner behind us. Not that we are ambassadors of Israel, but we are the unofficial ambassadors of Israel. When you talk about Infected Mushroom, the name Israel comes up. So Israel is a home show. When we go there, the shows are nuts. They're huge. We have such a fan base, and each time I go back, which is not home for me today, it's more of a thing. I remember how strong and how small and how devoted is this country for Psytrance music.
Yeah, it seems to be, from what I know from speaking to my Israeli friends, is electronic music's like really big there. It's
the thing. It's the thing. The rest is like, okay, to pass the time, radio and stuff like that. But when you go out on a weekend, there's only techno, psytrance, house. It changes, it varies, and that's what everybody goes to. The rest is like dubstep, which is huge in the United States. It's also quite big in the UK. But huge in the United States. Is a very small thing in Israel. Very small. We have Asaf Borgor, which is an Israeli that does a lot of dubstep. He's very big here in the American market. But in Israel, it doesn't bring a crowd, because Israelis, they don't care about dubstep. Just don't, So I don't know why, but just don't. So Israel is such a devoted country for Psytrance and techno, I gotta say today.
Yeah, I guess there is a fair bit of crossover between like techno and psytrance. Do you take into account that your fans may be sort of intoxicated? I just sort of this weird question, which like most people, when you're playing music to a crowd, they're going to be in whatever state. Like, do you take into account that maybe people are like tripping their tits off when they're in
that's not even taking into account. I see them on the dance floor. That's quite obvious. Yeah. People are intoxicated and stuff. But I gotta say, the early days of Infected Mushroom, when we hit, was like 96, 97. These were much more intoxicated days than today. People think that this generation now is intoxicated. They're dreaming. The beginning of Psytrance, like beginning of every kind of other scene, like with rock was the Doors and all this stuff, was only about intoxication. So today, people are intoxicated everywhere, in every place you're gonna go. So in Psytrance, they are. Do I take it into account? No. I always do the music that the most sober person that I know will dance to it. Because if he dances to it, then the guy that is tripping, that's easy, I always look for the dance floor to dance the most sober dude on the dance floor. And if I do that, then the rest will be very easy. So I know people intoxicate people just do that, and it's a phenomenon to itself, but it has nothing to do with the music.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic policy to go for the guy that's completely sober.
I see him. I locate him and I make him dance. Then the rest is easy.
That's fantastic, man. I mean, you mentioned the Doors then. You did also have a project where you got all of their stems.
Not only all the stems, I did it with the living members, with Raymond Zerak, with Kroger. Everybody came and we produced remixes to all their tracks, and I got the Jim Morrison original recordings, and we did a full. It was insane. It was an insane project, and what's fun about it, they wanted it as psychedelic as it be. So that even, and for me, what's funny enough, I didn't grow up as a Doors fan. I gotta say, I'm more, again, I told you, I grew up more on the UK kind of Genesis, Peter Gabriel, and all that stuff. But when I got the recording and I met the people here, I fell in love with the time, the era, of course. And where they lived, Laurel Canyon in Los Angeles, is where I live, you know. So and then Red Hot Chili Peppers recorded there, and the whole music scene of LA grew up in one street, which is Laurel Canyon, which is basically where I live. So I kind of, in Californication, the TV show is about that area. Anyways. So the Doors project was insane. It was so much fun to do, and the guy that is managing the living members and hold the estate is a very good friend of mine, Jeff, and he managed me here for the first year, and that's how I came about that project, and it was fun to do.
Yeah, I mean, the only time the Crystal Method did a remix, they did a remix that has Jim Morrison in it.
Correct.
Yeah, which is probably the only example I can think of like a dance track that's used the Doors in any way.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, you must have been like a kid in a.
Oh
like
yeah, dude! It was insane. It was insane. We did it, and I remember when we put Riders on the Storm on our album. It came out on, I think, in Army of Mushroom, the last track. We had performed it here in LA, and the band came and performed it with us. It was insane. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Shit, man. Wow. That must have been awesome.
Yeah.
You did also have Lady Gaga, like, took one of your records.
We did her first track of the previous album, I think, was Aura. The opening track was made by us, and it technically was a collaboration between us and Zed. We sent, because Zed is a friend of mine, and I sent him the track, and we started working on a collaboration. And then he calls me and he goes like, "Hey, listen, dude, Lady Gaga is here. She wants this track." I go like, "What?" And then he gave me the phone, and she literally said, "Hey, I want this track. I love it." So, and I go like, and then my management said, "Hey," and I said, "Okay, whatever." And she took it. She wrote lyrics to it. She did the lyrics in the song, and the song came in her album. But it didn't start as a Lady Gaga track. It started as a Zed collaboration, which I really like. Zed as a producer. Today he's the biggest pop producer here in he's the Calvin Harris of the US, and 100% he's huge. And I like him, and I love being and the track. I love the instrumental version we did, and what Lady Gaga did with it was also cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can have like. There's no higher accolade than one of the world's biggest pop stars going, "I like that track. I want
this.
It."
I want this. Yeah, yeah.
That's fucking incredible, man. Yeah, and when you're in the studio now, obviously you sing on a lot of your tracks now, but I guess you've always put little vocal parts in your albums and things. Yeah, you have an amazing presence on stage, man. I've watched a lot of your live stuff, so yeah, you have like so much energy. Like, yeah, it really translates.
I just enjoy it over there. As I told you, a stage for me is home. You know, I like being on stage. It's easy for me. It's people say how hard it is. That's not the hard part. The hard part is the flying, the getting there, the preparations. Being on stage for me is the easiest part ever. I like being on stage. And I always put out my highest energy there because I enjoy it, you know, and people hopefully enjoy what they see. Otherwise, I don't know what they're doing there. And, you know, it's fun. It's back and forth between a crowd and yourself. So I get a lot of it, and I take it back home and produce more.
Yeah, I really like. Yeah, you said that. I really like that. You said there's like you feed off the energy of the audience.
100%.
Back in the studio.
That's why I made a dance floor track for people to dance, and when they do dance, and when you see it, and when they go so bonkers on a track, you go like, "Oh, that's what I was. You know, that's what I did it for. You know." And then you have the power to do another one, and it's a cycle between a crowd and the band, and we've been lucky enough to have it for so many years, and that's why we continue and produce music.
Excellent. And I think you are an incredible frontman, and also Erez as well. He does his own thing, which takes skill and takes perseverance, and he's like a MIDI machine with his hand, isn't he?
Monster on the keyboard. Very unique player, and not only player, he's a very unique producer with a very small attention to little details, and he takes that side of Infected Mushroom. I take more of the front power energy side, and combine together that what makes Infected Mushroom. And then you add the drummer and a guitarist, and it becomes a full cycle of a band. But again, me and Erez, we are the guys that sit from the beginning of each track together, and then until the final product. And we've been used to working like this for years. Now through the pandemic, because he lives like 1.5 hours from where we walk like this, studio-wise, and then we meet once in a while. But again, the chemistry is there, and it's we have fun doing music.
That is incredible. I mean, the partnership you've had over so many years, to still being creative, to still be like, because I think to be creative, you have to feel comfortable, and you have to feel excited too.
100%. It's not. You have to be to make music. I always tell people you have to have two of the other moods. One is be very depressed, because a lot of the music that I've done very depressed, my wife says is the best thing I ever did, or very happy. Which is, again, you have to be in a state of a mood to do music, Each musician to his own. But again, for me, and I always say for me coming into a studio, doesn't matter which mood I am, is an escape room, I escape from whatever, and I sit here, and not always something great comes out of it, but the best time was spent here. So I have a very unique studio now where I'm sitting in my home in LA. It's my escape room, and I come here every day. Doesn't matter if I produce. Sometimes I come only to watch a movie here, because I like being in this studio. And you need to have a nice place for yourself. Doesn't matter if it's a fancy studio or not, just to escape and produce music. And I've been lucky enough to do it until today.
Nice, man. Yeah, it looks beautiful. It looks incredible.
Very new. We call it the cabin. It has a vibe of Switzerland. You don't see behind me. There is a window that watches the mountains, so that's why we call it the cabin. And it's fun and games. Yeah.
Yeah, you could be on the Alps or something.
Correct. Which I'm not, but anyways, yeah.
That's great, man. That's great. Yeah, I think music for a lot of people, certainly for myself over the years, has. It's definitely taken me through dark times and allowed me to escape whatever boring or mundane or irritating stuff is happening in my life. Just getting in front of some speakers and some synths and playing around. It's really.
That's all we want to do, That's as a musician, that's your goal, and that's where I want to be, and I'm lucky enough to have done it until today.
Excellent, man. Excellent. So you are now sort of like a live show with drummer and guitarist. You've also done some like 3D projection performances recently. Yeah. So that was with a company called V Squared.
Correct. V Squared and Vita Motus, which also built the pods. She's amazing. She does so many art exhibitions around the world. She built some of the Boom Festival areas and Coachella, and she built the spheres. Vita Motus and then V Squad Lab made the projection mapping, and together with Infected we had a show called The Fungus Among Us. We ran that show for like 3 years all over the United States. It was a bus tour, very hardcore, and I enjoyed it. Then it came to another show called Animatronica, where we had robotic mushrooms that were built by the guys from Burning Man that built the El Pupo octopus and everything. So they built us a mechanical moving mushroom, and that was the Animatronica tour. So each few years we go on a massive tour with a crazy stage. It's fun and games, but it's also so much work and time consuming. But it's fun. Again, it's something different for the crowd to see behind us. And besides the music elements over the years, the visual element became so important to people when they're there. So we were lucky to work with so much talented crews here, all based in LA, to take our sound and put it in a visual environment. So it was projection mapping, it was the spheres, robotic mushrooms, and we'll see what comes up next after this pandemic. We'll see. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think you've done tremendously well. You've always sort of changed and adapted and evolved as a duo, and I think that's one of your strengths, is the ability to embrace change and to keep evolving and moving forward.
Correct. Yeah, we've been blessed enough to kind of be productive, check around a lot of other talented people, and mix art and visual with the music, because it gives it a little bit more of a broad span to audience.
Absolutely. And do you personally have any sort of life mantra? Do you have any sort of philosophy for life that you take with you?
For me, I keep it simple, and I always tell people, enjoy the really small things in life. Me, there's nothing better than my shot of espresso in the morning, and then my walk with the dog, and I'm talking pandemic wise, or because that's what I do now, I enjoy very simple things in life, and then I don't over drama or take other stuff very serious, because in these times, or especially in a musician life, the mental aspect of the journey is very hard. A lot of people lose it along the way. They become depressed. They become a little bit scared. Because it's a tough cycle. Being a musician, being around the world, and especially in those days. But for me, I try to enjoy the little stuff, and the little stuff are always there in the good times and in the bad times. So if you enjoy those, and these are the things you care about, then everything else is just a picture, and it goes by. And this is how I live my life for years, and I've I don't want to say I've succeeded, but I'm happy here today. So and I was happy 20 years ago. So I still keep longevity of touring and enjoying myself and life. And of course, I have my kids and family today, so I'm in a different place a little bit, and they keep me happy and younger. I watch basketball with them. We fun DJ together as a practice, and this is a different time, But again, I try to enjoy the little stuff, and I always try to be positive every day.
Excellent, man. That's incredible. You mentioned that you have 7 kids. You got 7 kids between you and Eris.
Correct. 4 kids Eris, 3 kids me. It's a bus. It's a full bus. Yeah.
Nice, man. Nice. It's been fantastic to talk to you today. I really appreciate speaking to you.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah. Obviously, when it all comes back, it's going to be incredible, and I'm sure you're gonna. That sober guy maybe that sober guy's not going to be there when you.
No, maybe he's not going to be sober. That guy, because it's after pandemic. He wants to kind of blow out steam and everything. You never know who's going to be sober and who's not. But anyways, I'm super looking forward to going back, and hopefully soon.
Excellent. Great. Well, thank you very much for speaking to me.
It's my pleasure. Keep safe in the UK. Amazing.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Have a good one.
What a guy. Really, really, really enlightening chat with Duvdev. I have to be honest, speaking to artists like that, they're so huge. It's easy to get a little bit nervous, but he made me feel so at ease. And such a warm, welcoming, talkative guy, very open about his things. I could see, and I can see, why they've been so successful just off the back of his personality, his character, his drive, and his love for weird sounds, inevitably. So yeah, that's it for this show. Thanks again for listening. Please do donate if you can. On the show next month or week, whatever happens, we're speaking to a guy who really knows his synths. He really knows his plugins too. There might be a hint to who's coming on. Well, thank you very much for listening. I'm midierror, and hopefully I'll see you again soon.